Hello and welcome back to Luke-N-SHAE'S place. So glad you can stop by. I sure hope you're wearing your smile. I'm wearing mine and I am ready to do a video for you guys. It's a reaction video. I'm going to play two videos, but before I begin, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like button. Put me in the algorithm so that other viewers can find this platform, and don't be shy. Go ahead and share. That also helps to grow the platform. A lot of you wonder, how can I help your platform? Well, just click that like button. That definitely helps. Sharing helps. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. If you like the content that you are viewing here at Luke-N-SHAE'S place, go ahead and subscribe. It's 100% free. And those who have joined, welcome to the family. So I have two videos that I'm going to share with you guys, but as some of us are getting ready to celebrate in our country Labor Day, I just want to take a moment just to reflect on what that actually means when we say Labor Day in our country, because Labor Day is a day that the first Monday of September that is set aside every year to celebrate the labor, the rights in the country for the laborers, the workforce to have certain hours of work. You know, we're not working all day. There's so many things that came into place for Labor Day. But when we think of Labor Day, do we just think of Labor Day for certain people? Or is Labor Day for all Americans? So when I think about that, and it's sad as we get close to Labor Day, I just want to say, you know, a time where people will be celebrating, there will be some people that are not celebrating, because in our country alone, as of July 2025, it has been 806,000 jobs across our country that have been cut. And we're talking about layoffs. We're talking about, jobs that, basically, they got rid of some positions. And let's face it, the DOGE, okay, the Department of Government Efficiency, okay, they had a bunch of budget cuts. Also, not adding anything good to that, the tariffs have also, taken a toll with some companies, where they had to cut their workforce as well. And AI, okay, a lot of people don't realize that, but the AI with that, taking some job roles, you have a lot of Americans who are out of work because of technology. So is it good or not if you have a lot of people that are now trying to find work, and we are sitting here getting ready for Labor Day, but you have people who actually aren't able to labor because jobs that they went to for 20 plus years, they were let go, almost at their retirement age. So it's almost like, okay, wow, you're contributing to the wealth of the country, and then it's snatched from you. So, I just want to send a heartfelt, just love to those from Luke-N-SHAE'S place to you guys, because I know the struggle of trying to find work, and it seems like it's hard today. You're applying, you're doing everything that you are supposed to do to try to get back in that fight and be a part of the workforce, but there's a lot of people that are cutting their workforce. So it's like, wow, if you can get in there, it's like jumping double dutch. It's like, okay, all right, this interview, let me see if I can get this one. It's a sad time. So as our country is celebrating this, let's actually look at what that is meaning for some others who are not working right now and not by their choice. But with that being said, guys, I wanted to also just touch on the topic that I'm touching on today, the blackout. Okay, that's my title, Blackout, Black History, Ink That Never Dries. And what the video is about, what I'm going to share, my reaction video, basically is when we talk about labor in our country and we talk about the people who have contributed to America's wealth, and with all that's going on in our country, let's not forget that behind the scenes there are some people that are trying to eliminate the stories, the history of people who look like me, melanated people, black people, who have worked hard in this country, since we're talking about labor, worked hard to help to build America's wealth and to eliminate those stories and to basically put it in the category of wokeness, and to say, oh wow, I just feel like, some of these museums, we're not going to give them funding. They have to take some of these things down because we do not want people to look at America for what it actually really was. It's the history. And if we can't share history, if we can't tell the actual stories, then everything is going to be based on a lie, right? To eliminate history is to then tell a lie and to then sugarcoat, or the word that I use, to black out. We're going to black it out. Let's just forget about it. Forget about it. But should we be forgetting about any history when it comes to America? Because that's what actually makes America what it is. A lot of times over the years we call America a melting pot, a melting pot you have. But when you eliminate any part of the history, which it seems to be my history, Black history, that is trying to, they're trying to eliminate, and it's really something when you think about it, because I've heard where there was people saying, slaves, it wasn't really slavery. They were hired servants. Just think about that for a minute. Hired servants. Where were they getting paid? Hired. When somebody says hired, usually that means there's wages with that whole title of a hired servant. But no, that's not what was going on. But that's what they want to put in the history books for the generations to come, because Lord forbid if they know the truth of what happened, and Lord forbid if other countries, we need this to start to die down with the generations. We don't want people to know the truth of what actually happened on the soil that we walk on. But let's dive into the first video, guys. I want to take a look, and just for anybody who's new to LUKE-N-SHAE'S place, go ahead in the description section. You will see any videos, any of the content creators or anything I'm sharing. The description section will have all that information if you want to check out the full videos that I'm sharing. All right, let's dive into it.
An executive order has just been signed by Trump, one that could erase everything you thought you knew about America's past. The chains, the blood, the buried truth. No headlines, no outrage, just silence and a pen.
After another bold move by President Trump, this time taking aim at the Smithsonian Institution.
But why would a former president want museums to forget that? Let's find out. It didn't start with a press conference. There were no reporters in the room, no cheering crowds, no American flags waving on stage. Just a desk, a signature, and a smile. That's how the order entered history. Quiet. But what set it in motion may be the loudest rewriting of American memory in decades. The document is titled, Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History. A name so vague, so dressed in decency. You would almost miss the violence it contains. But behind its calm exterior is a blueprint, not for unity, but for erasure. It begins with a list: museums, archives, public institutions, cultural spaces where America's darkest truths live. Slavery, segregation, massacres, stolen lands. The order doesn't name them directly, but everyone knows which ones it means. The places that make you uncomfortable. The places where school trips turn silent. The places where history refuses to smile. Buried in the third paragraph, the real...
How do you guys feel about that when you think about the Smithsonian, the museum and all the talk about, not even talk because this is actually really happening. When you think of a museum, do you guys, think of, okay, I'm going there to actually see exhibits and things that you don't necessarily see in books that you pick up or things that you've seen in school, whatever. You go there for education purposes and basically to see history and to see artifacts from history, different times throughout history. So to eliminate that, how do you guys feel about that when things that are in these museums to actually open your eyes to, wow, we can actually look at it as, okay, look where we were and look where we are today. But when I see that there is this agenda to erase things, to erase my history, I have to look at it as, like my father used to always say, it's a long time from the cotton field. And I actually, Dad, rest in peace, I miss you. I have to actually say, no, we're not that far from the cotton field. We're not. Because, like I put in the title, the ink that never dries. We're still writing our story. Our story is still being written. And we have yet to actually come together as a people. It's like oil and vinegar trying to mix. You're trying to mix something. You're trying to mix liquids that are just not coming together. And that's what it still feels like here on this soil. So when you see people who look like me and we're the target, our history is the target to be erased. Come on, you have to open your eyes to the actual agenda that is being pushed out there. That's crazy because there's so many different parts of history with different people that have been in our country, but wow, let's just eliminate this history. I don't know if they feel like that's gonna stop people from remembering or sharing with our children, because we have to keep the history alive. We can't just, take this like this is okay. It's not. It's not okay. Because erasing it it's a lie. It's a whole lie. You want to build now America based off of a lie. Basically, you want to portray this whole lie like this never happened. Let's just sweep it under the rug. Sweeping it under the rug doesn't make it go away. So, yeah, why is this a big thing to do? Why are they trying to do this? But let's watch more.
Real aim appears to remove divisive narratives that undermine national cohesion. It doesn't say racism, it doesn't say injustice, but it doesn't need to. Because when you target the narratives that cause discomfort, you're targeting the voices that were never comfortable to begin with. This isn't a new debate, but it's the first time it's come with federal enforcement. Under the new order, all institutions receiving government funds must undergo an ideological review. A team handpicked by the administration will examine every exhibit, every educational program, and every historical first time it's come with federal enforcement. Under the new order, all institutions receiving government funds must undergo an ideological review. A team handpicked by the administration will examine every exhibit, every educational program, and every historical quote etched in stone or printed on paper. Their job? Identify content that portrays America as oppressive, unjust, or structurally unequal. Not wrong, not factually inaccurate, just divisive. And that's the loophole, that's the poison. Because once truth becomes optional, once historical pain is seen as a problem rather than a lesson, then memory itself is on a leash. The team leading this review isn't made of historians, not scholars, not educators. It's made of political allies, cultural critics, and ideologues. People who don't ask, is this true? They ask, does this make us They ask, does this make us look bad? And if the answer is yes, they recommend removal. Museums will be allowed to keep content that celebrates national progress, highlights American innovation, and supports cultural pride. But anything that drags the eye backward toward injustice, inequality, genocide, will be marked as a threat to public unity. Not offensive, not false, just inconvenient. And inconvenient history, under this new doctrine, has no place in the National Museum system. The order doesn't ban slavery exhibits. It doesn't outlaw mentioning Jim Crow. It doesn't say you can't speak of native boarding schools or redlining or lynchings. No, it's smarter than that. It simply starves them. Any museum that continues to feature such divisive themes risks losing all federal support. No funding, no grants, no partnerships, no protection. In short, history stays, but only if you can afford to tell it without the government's help, and most can. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel.
All right, guys. So yeah, you can go down in the description section and check out that video. If you want to see the full video, you can check that out. I will have all the details in the description section. But yeah, wow, just erasing. You're not going to have funds basically for the museums. They are being threatened with their funding from the government if you are not putting certain things in your museum and taking things that show the truth about America, the truth about basically slavery and black history. There's certain things that you can't put. Oh, put happy things. Put happy things, but what happy things? I'm just like, okay, when I think about that, I'm like, oh, that's eliminating a lot of the museums because it shares a story. As you're walking from exhibit to exhibit, you're getting a story of history. So to take parts of that away, that eliminates it. Honestly, it really does. And whew, wow, something else. And I can't say that I ever thought that I would experience this in my lifetime. This is something that you read about in a book that happened to my ancestors back then. Like, wow, you guys you really went through a lot. You really did. And like I said earlier, we're not that far removed. We're not that far removed. I'm sorry, that just took me back. Like I said, we're not far from that cotton field. We're still right there. My fingers are still getting pricked. I feel like I'm right in that. You know, like I said, it's ink that never dries. Ink that never dries. Stories still being written. We're still facing hardships when it comes. We're facing these things, and it's crazy when I think about that. But if this is something that we're seeing as a people, like, are we gonna sit and just still keep on at it with each other? Because this is what we've become. Our ancestors who have been through so much so that we could actually be where we are today, because I'm grateful that where we are today, I'm not going to sit here and say I want to be back there and doing free labor and not having any generational wealth for my generations of families to come. I'm not going to say that because I'm a product of that, right? Because my ancestors worked hard for this country, but yet I have to work by the sweat of my brow just to be able to survive here in this country. So with that being said, no, I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I've been working ever since even a child, just working. Parents always taught me how to work, and my thing is, with that being said, yeah, nothing was just given to us. And when I think about all the free labor as we, like I said, approach Labor Day, all the free labor that my ancestors did to help make this country wealthy, okay, and then to turn around and try to eliminate those stories of said work that they did in this country, of said trials and tribulations that they faced here, is beyond me crazy to even see that this is happening. But I want to look at another video, guys, and just wanted to just share a little bit. Again, if you want to watch the full videos, go right ahead. The details will be in the description section. Let's go.
Good evening. I'm Abby Phillip in New York. Last week on this show, a guest shocked the table by arguing in part that slavery in America can't just be blamed on one race, and that museums put too much focus on the role of white people who participated in that terrible institution. And now tonight, that same argument is being pushed by the President of the United States. Donald Trump says that one of the reasons for his crackdown on Smithsonian museums is, quote, everything discussed is how bad slavery was. What we try to do on this program is create a platform for discussion and debate that reflects the very real differences that exist in this country. It's what echo chambers in our society fail to do, frankly. But on this topic, it's important to say objectively, slavery was indeed bad. It was evil, the nation's original sin. And it is impossible to understand the true history of this country without fully grappling with slavery's impact. Simply because of their birthplace and the color of their skin, the bodies and spirits of black men, women, and children were exploited for profit and power. They were forced onto ships, bound by shackles and collars that ripped off their skin. One older man described it as iron entering our souls. Some chose to jump into the waters infested with sharks rather than feel that iron. Now, once they arrived on this very soil, they were forced to work by way of the whip, despite being starved, sleep-deprived, threatened, tortured, physically and psychologically. They were auctioned off, humiliated, fearful, and separated from their families and their children. Black women and girls were raped and sexually assaulted. Many were brutally murdered and mutilated. Now, this endured for decades, centuries. And even in the places where slavery was not legal, institutions from our banks to universities were built on enslaved labor in both the North and in the South. And for many of the white Americans who did not personally own slaves, they benefited from a caste system that concentrated wealth and political power in their hands. So, when we acknowledge the existence of black people who operated George Washington's Mount Vernon or the black hands that built the White House, we are acknowledging the existence, the perseverance, and the contributions of the souls.
Say that a little louder for the people in the back. She said, and I quote, "The black hands that built the White House." Yeah. And that's something when you think about that. The black hands that built the White House. Yeah. The very place where these things are being signed, right? Let's eliminate that again, that labor. We don't want people to know that we this is something that we were allowing in this country, you know, and it's history. It's history. You were supposed to look at history and be like, wow, they were really, this is really something. Look where we are today. We can't even do that because you're taking us back here. I feel like we're going backwards. But yeah, the very hands that built that White House that you were signing those papers in. Let's go.
That white supremacy sought to erase. Those people built families, they developed a culture, they were the keepers of the faith, cultivators of community. And they are the ones who deserve credit for forcing America to rid itself of the stain of slavery. Now, all of this information, these stories are from the Smithsonian's African American History Museum. And I share this not as a lecture for you, but as a lesson. America, the superpower, is largely possible only because of the superpowers of people who went lifetimes without the same rights of generations who were boosted from their backs. True history should include everything. Yes, the evils and the horrors too. And museums are supposed to be places that protect those stories, the images, the lessons, the very things that inform so much of our current state of our republic, from racism to poverty. No matter how painful, or in the president's words, how horrible the lesson. Now, just listen to one formerly enslaved man describe what slavery is like in his own words.
You know what I'd rather do? If I thought that I'd ever be a slave again, I'd take a gun and just end it all right away. Because you're nothing but a dog. You're not a thing but a dog.
We are here in the studio with our panel, Leah Wright-Rigueur. I was actually surprised to see President Trump basically saying the quiet part out loud, that this review of the Smithsonian is not about even just something vague about reviewing history to make sure that it's fair. He wants to make it so that it talks less about slavery. What does that say to you?
Well, I think it's an effort. It's part of a larger effort to both stainwash and whitewash American history and essentially erase all of the parts and disappear all of the parts that make Americans, that make President Trump uncomfortable, that feel distasteful, that are a reflection of the actual real and horrific parts of our history.
And I have to say that there were so many of us out here when we hear the phrase, "Make America Great Again." In my spirit, when I first heard that, and don't get me wrong, I get it. The news will put out certain things and videos to make you like, wow, every time I heard that, and then they show, oh, this person hitting this person from another race. But there was still something in my spirit that felt like, you know, what does he actually mean by that? Because who was it actually great for? And I'm not saying that, like I said, I wasn't born with the silver spoon in my mouth, but nobody wants to talk about systemic racism. They don't want to talk about the struggles that people that look like me have had in this country, because let's just forget about it. Life goes on. Just move on. Because if it's not happening to you, then you think it's not happening, but it's something that happens more and more every day. And when I look at people like me and we are fighting with each other and we got pew-pews out here just taking each other's lives, and we're just doing the mostest. We're doing too much instead of coming together, because look what is going on right before our eyes, and we're too busy fighting with each other and not getting along. No, this is not good. we are not that far from the cotton field, and you guys you're not helping. They're looking, the people who really want to eliminate your history are looking like, well, you know what? They think that the ink is gonna dry. That ink is gonna dry because we're too busy out here eliminating each other. But let's look at some more of what they have to say. Again, guys, in the description section, you'll find any of the details for the content that I'm sharing, and you can watch the full videos. But let's get back to this. I want to watch a little bit more and go from there. All right.
And I find it a little ironic. You know, earlier today, as I was listening to some of the commentary, my first thought was, wait a second, I wonder if the president has actually ever visited any of the Smithsonian museums. And then I remembered that in 2017, he actually took a tour of the National Museum of African American History and Culture.
Let me just play, actually, what he said during that tour. Listen to this.
I had the privilege of visiting the National Museum of African American History and Culture right here in Washington, D.C. It's a new, beautiful Smithsonian museum that serves as a shining example of African Americans' incredible contributions to our culture, our society, and our history. It also tells of the great struggle for freedom and equality that prevailed against the sins of slavery and the injustice of discrimination. The work and love of the people who helped create such a masterpiece is a testament to the legacy of so many leaders it honors.
So was it that he didn't believe what he read from the teleprompter as he recorded that video, or what?
You know, I'm really struggling.
That's what I was like, because that sound heartfelt. It sounded like, wow, he was really supportive of that museum that he visited. And what happened today? What have we here? How we go from saying that, like she said, what I guess what was on the teleprompter. Is that what they told you to say? Because your actions today do not reflect those words that you just said there. But let's go.
Struggling to understand in a lot of ways, particularly given that the tour that he took with director Lonnie Bunch was actually a reflection of really the mastery that and really the care and the patience that historians, that scholars, that curators put into the Museum of African American History and Culture. It is not just about the horrors of slavery, although it tells that very important story. It actually follows this really brilliant model where you move through the museum and it tells the story not just of enslaved Americans in America, but also of the resilience, of the triumph. And in doing so, it tells a story that is very much about democracy and about a quest for democracy and the way that Americans both built this country, but also the story and the narrative of like a truly American experience. And so for the president, I think, to just simply erase that and push that away tells it, particularly after praising it a few years ago, tells us that this is part of a much larger agenda. This is part of a much larger agenda to erase things that really, I think the country is just refuses to deal with and is really uncomfortable with.
He said as much by ending this post with, "This country cannot be woke because woke is broke." He says, "We have to have the hottest country in the world, and we want people to talk about it, including our museums." Why is he equating talking about slavery with woke?
Well, look, I think, let me just start this conversation by saying that my personal view is slavery was a reprehensible institution. I agree with your words that it was our original sin. We also fought a war to eradicate it and to get over it as a country. And that was a necessary thing that happened, and a lot of people died, and we did eradicate it, and that's a good thing. I think what he's asking is, in our museums, what defines us? Are we going to be defined by the worst moment or the worst institution or the worst mistake we ever made? Or are we going to be defined by what we've done moving forward to get over it and to become the greatest nation on the earth?
I don't know. I usually we can take it back to children, right? Being a child, doing something you had no business doing, right? You learned from that. When there was maybe a punishment or something was taken from you, you learned from that. Okay, you didn't forget about that, because had you forgot about that, then you'd keep on right doing that same thing that you were in trouble for. So erasing something that was so bad, how is that helpful? How is that helpful? Oh, just get over it. Just forget about it. It's not that nobody's getting over it. It's the simple fact that it was never really resolved. When you say, okay, get out the fields, but everything else that we got into was just like being in the fields, kind of, pretty much. Really? How can you say get over it when it's still here? The ink is not dry. It's still being written. So how can you tell somebody to get over it when we're still feeling the shocks from our very ancestors who are still crying from their graves for us to finally actually be free? But have we ever been in this country? Because someone will look at it like, oh, you guys, you have this and you have, oh, there's no, there's a difference. And like I said, the people who don't look like me some of you might be like, well, because you see us in passing in stores and you just, I don't know what they're talking about. They need to get over it. I had a friend that told me that one time. Well, I just think people need to get over. It's not about getting over things. When we're seeing it constantly, and we talk about the crimes, and I just talked about it amongst my people. But what pushed them to that point? Nobody wants to talk about that. You know, when we think about the poverty-stricken areas where they're not getting the help, you know, they're going into a job interview is different from the next man, or, you know, them trying to get out of a certain way of living is harder because of the institutions that have been put in place for them not to get ahead. You know, nobody's making excuses. Nobody's not getting over it. But when I still see this today and I see it's horrible, you tell us to get over it. Let's just erase it. So that way, is that going to fix the issues that we have here? You're not telling anybody to get over white supremacy. You're not telling them to, hey, get over the skin color of black people. Hey, get over it. You know, stop having hate crimes. Stop projecting this hate. You're not telling them to get over their thought process of my skin is the end all be all, the color of my skin. You're not telling them that. But you're telling black people to get over it. You don't need to put this in the museum. Okay. Okay.
My belief is that he wants to look at these museums, not because he wants to do away with the idea that slavery occurred, but that he wants to ask a very simple question. Are we going to present ourselves as being exceptional or not? And I think he believes there is an effort by some to continue to try to define us from our worst moment instead of to try to focus and define us based on our best moments, which started when we eradicated slavery and began to move forward as the light of the world. And so that's what I think.
Museums, that's what makes us an exceptional nation, is because they tell the history and the story of our country, and therefore, you know, these horrible, horrific moments in our history. The original sin, as Abby talked about, when it comes to slavery, has you know, we of course did eradicate it, but look where we've come today. And I think those museums, like to your point, make America exceptional, and in museums all around the world that document atrocities, whether it be, you know, from Nazi Germany to eradicating slavery here in the United States, you have to learn the lessons of the past, and to deny it is to defend it.
I don't think he's denying it, and Bachi may want to comment on this as well, but
Yeah, and she mentioned Nazi Germany. Okay, so again, where are you telling the Jewish people to get over the Holocaust? Where are you telling people who actually their ancestors experienced that whole thing and they can tell stories and they have music? Where are you telling them to get over it? Where are you telling the indigenous people, hey, get over it, okay? You know, get over it. You know, yeah, that land that you're saying your ancestors owned and they came and they did what they did. It's so horrible. Because everything that, when I think about this, a lot of it is just, yeah, like, let's unlife people. Let's take things. Let's, you know, and then later on, let's just say this never happened. This never happened. But yeah, where are you telling Jewish people to get over the Holocaust? You're not telling people are still going to be telling their stories, and you're going to be able to go into different places and see different things from, you know, different places in the world, you know, even in different places of the world. You'll be able to put the stories together. But when you eliminate a group of people because you can't deal with the sins of your ancestors, okay, that's a problem. But let's hear more. Not far from the cotton field at all.
I think what he wants to ask is a simple question. As we present our history, are we spending most of our time focused on something terrible? Are we going to spend more time as we enter our 250th anniversary focused on what this country has done to improve the lives of every single person who lives here? We are the light of the world for a reason, because we're an improving commodity.
The question I ask when I hear you say that is, why, I mean, the idea that slavery happened, it's hard to understand what we've overcome if you don't even talk about what it was. You know, I think that kind of waters down the whole.
I don't think anybody is proposing that we ignore that it happened.
I don't think that's accurate. I think that the problem is that there are people, and Scott used the term a couple of times, and I don't think it was meant with any type of ill intent, but he said, you know, we got over it. And I think that's the problem. I think that there are a lot of people in this country who believe that for some reason we got over it. I mean, the fact is that American chattel slavery is vastly different than what Jillian Michaels and others talk about when they talk about slavery around the world. I mean, the chattel slavery system that we had was extremely transactional. It was actually codified in law, and it was based upon the color and race, as you so eloquently pointed out in your opening. And so not only when you think about that portion of where we are, 26 of our first 30 Supreme Court justices owned slaves. The people who are on our money every single day owned slaves. United States presidents, members of the United States Congress owned slaves. Lehman Brothers, we're not far from Wall Street, owned slaves. Brooks Brothers suits that we wear own slaves. So not only are we talking about the epicenter and the foundation of where our country was built, we have to acknowledge that. But even more importantly, and this is where I believe that Scott and I can find agreement on this issue. Breon and Megan Walker are two of my best friends in the world. Their dad was the first African-American SGA president at the University of South Carolina, right? He was an exec at IBM, but he was one of the first, right? We're still talking about first that emerged and stood on those shoulders. I tell the story often about my mom and dad. My mom helped desegregate high schools. In Hamilton High School in Memphis, Tennessee, my dad shot in the Orangeburg Massacre. This is a part of my story. This isn't some faint, distant history. Yeah. And so the reason I bring that up is because I think that American exceptionalism talks about the fact that Black folk help, enslaved folk help build this country for what it is. Mm-hmm. They built Washington, D.C., but all of us are around this table. Abby, myself, all of us, not just Abby and myself, all of us are around this table because of the sacrifices and the blood and the sweat and the tears these people poured in.
I also come back to why the focus so much on slavery when it comes to rewriting history. There's a lot of history that it's in these museums, but he's focused on one thing, and that is that there's too much slavery being mentioned in the United States of America. That's very odd, Batya, honestly.
So I want to start by saying I actually agree with everything that's been said, and I loved your opening. And so I offer these comments very humbly because it's an honor to be included in this conversation, which is very solemn, and I think we all understand that, and we are all looking for the common ground here. And so what I'm about to say, I don't mean in any way to negate that tone. But starting around 2011, 2012, sociologists started to notice a shift in white liberal opinion polling to where white progressives became more extreme in their views on race than Black and Hispanic Americans. And they called this, the sociologists called it the Great Awakening. And when they postulated, where did this come from? Why did white progressives suddenly start obsessing over race in a way that was actually far to the left of where Hispanic and Black Americans were on this issue? They found that the media had shifted radically how it talked about these issues. So for example, in 2010, the words white supremacy were mentioned 75 times in the Washington Post and the New York Times.
But the media is different from museums.
In 2020, the words white supremacy were mentioned 700 times in the Washington Post and the New York Times and 2,400 times in NPR. The word racism, 4,000 times in 2020. The words white and racial privilege from 2013 to 2019 grew by 1,500% in the New York Times and the Washington Post. And the word slavery itself exponentially skyrocketed as a percentage of words. I'm offering this only to suggest.
I understand. I'm just wondering
that.
What do you think is the problem with talking about slavery, white supremacy, racism, et cetera?
So the point I'm trying to make here is that liberals will say, well, this is a reflection of reality. But of course it isn't. This is a reflection of a newfound obsession that was driven by the media. And that doesn't reflect either the moral evil of these things or the historical accuracy.
I do want to dive into what you mean by that, because you say that you don't think it's a reflection of reality. Based on what?
Well, slavery,
based on the idea that those things don't exist, that white supremacy doesn't exist, racism doesn't exist, that we shouldn't be talking about it anymore?
Based on the idea, obviously all these things I think are evil, but there's not more slavery now to the tune of
but I think part of the problem,
1,500% than there was
Batya, is that in the hold on a second, Bakari. Part of the problem is that back, not that long ago, in the 50s, 60s, even beyond that, when there was actual Jim Crow happening in this country, people were actually treating Black people as second-class citizens. We weren't talking about those things at all.
But in
those words were virtually never mentioned.
Abby, you don't
so is
think
that better? Was it better then, or was it worse?
You don't think that 2013 is the same as the 1960s,
But you're missing,
right?
respectfully, and I've had this debate many
times. Do you
times.
really think that there's as big a difference between the 1960s and 2013?
I don't. That's not my point. My point is that the use of the language in present day, or the lack of the use of the language back when racism was apparent every single day in the streets of America, doesn't reflect really anything except perhaps a better awareness of the reality that we live in as a country.
That's not the point.
Do you think the country was more racist in 2013?
That's not the point.
I didn't say anything about whether the country was more racist
The point
now.
is, we're missing the forest for the trees. Because what you have to realize is that the remnants of slavery that emerged through black codes, which, were enforced by what is modern day police, what you're talking about in Jim Crow, what you're talking about in the civil rights movement, those fights, they weren't even 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. When you talk about George Elmore and everything he gave up so that African Americans could vote in the primary system, when you talk about Harry and Eliza Briggs, who actually were the foundation for Brown versus the Board of Education.
Wow, and that debate gets better. I don't even want to say better, but it's definitely a debate that you guys should check out the full video. In the description section, you'll get the details for that. But wow, and if you haven't, if you stopped in a little later at LUKE-N-SHAE'S place, go ahead and click that like button if you haven't already. Go ahead and share this video if it added value, and don't forget to subscribe. appreciate you here. And also, just listening to that debate. Just because it didn't happen to you doesn't mean it doesn't happen. It's easy to say, oh, the media. And listen, I'm all for that. I agree. The media will push out things. They have their own agenda. They have their ways to get their views as well. But when you actually see the things going on before your eyes, I'm not even saying on the palm of your hand, looking at your phone or looking at your TV screen and actually searching for the drama in the country. But when you actually see it before your eyes and you experience, you're on the other end and you actually experience what they're talking about because of the skin that you're in. Yeah, you can speak on it and it's something that you can relate to, but we're not so far removed, right? So to hear different talking points of, oh, we just want to, I believe that, oh, he wants to just put the good things in the museum. Why do we have to focus on slavery? Let's just eliminate that now. You taking that piece of history away is taking, basically a big part of America away, because those people who look like me, who actually worked and labored in this country to build America, that's Black history. And why take it away? Why eliminate it? What is so bad? What is it about it that you guys want to take that away? Those stories need to be told, that this is where your people were. This is what happened with your people. And this is where you are today. Hopefully we can get to that point. This is where we are today. This is where we are today. It should be a whole difference. But it feels like we're going back this way, right? The ink that never dries. Blackout Black history. That's exactly what they want to do. Just blackout. Let's just forget about it. But I took up a lot of your time, guys. I took up enough of your time. But this was just something that I couldn't cut short. I thought it was interesting to share. Wanted to share it with you guys. We're, like I said, stumbling upon Labor Day, and let's focus on the different things that we talked about in the beginning, where we talked about what Labor Day really means in our country and those who have lost their jobs this year, sadly. Yeah. Took enough of your time. I do appreciate you guys stopping by. Always great to have you guys listen in. I appreciate the love and support that you are giving this platform, and help me grow it. Get my videos out there. But I just want to say, guys, your mental health is important. Definitely important. And as we can see with different things going on in our country, different tragedies that, especially this week in LUKE-N-SHAE'S place, we just want to say, just a heartfelt, just sad to hear about the school shooting this week. And it's sad because I just did a video about that as our little ones get ready to go back to school, and it should be something where we're smiling and happy. But just that quick, the devil will come right in and try to put that fear. But for those two little children who are no longer here, we just say sorry. It's never good enough to say sorry. And prayers, and that right there is the biggest thing you can do, is pray. Listen, prayer is huge. And of course, I would have technical difficulties right as I was saying bye to you guys. But I'm glad that we were able to actually do the whole video. But for those who still stayed on here, just wanted to finish what I was saying, that, you know, about the school shooting that happened this week. Listen, prayers are great. They are definitely one of the best things you can do, honestly. But don't wait until tragedy strikes to pray. Let's pray over our children before they go to school, in everything that they do. Pray over our families, you know. And not only that, but let's do something about this. Like, you know, let's do something. You know, let's do something to where this can't keep happening. This has to stop. This has to stop. Our little ones should be able to go to school with no fear. Nobody should have any fear going to school. You should be playing with friends and enjoying your childhood, learning, you know, and just enjoying being a child, not with the fear of this. And our mental health is important, as I was getting at. That's another thing. Our mental health, we have so much going on in our country, but I'm starting to see that, you know, even that is being made as like sometimes people are using those for excuses for different behaviors and different things like that, you know. And we have to take care of that, take care of the mental health, so that it doesn't get out of hand. But your mental health is important here at LUKE-N-SHAE'S Place. A positive mentality is a destined reality. Stay focused, stay positive. Stay in tune with your history. Don't let them erase that. Tell the story. Share your stories that you know. Keep that history alive. And until next time, stay blessed. Take care.